Good morning, Mr. Mac.
Good morning. I slept in this morning on you. Sorry about
You
that.
did. That loss last night took it out of you.
It took its toll, that's for sure. Man, I
How's
was
your morning going
yeah, it was
now that
good.
you're up?
I made a nice pot of coffee, took the dog out for a walk. We live in an apartment, and just a puppy, right? So we're still trying to train him to not go in the hallways, and sometimes we'll be walking down the hall. Usually I carry him, but today I thought he was okay. So we walked him down the hallways and he starts peeing. And the problem with where I'm at right now, I need advice on this, is once he starts peeing, he won't stop, right? So if I pick
Right.
him up, it's just an extended mess that covers a bigger area, right? If I just leave him, it's way easier to clean up. But we have like paper thin walls in the hallways, so when someone's walking by, you can hear them no problem. So I really don't want to yell at him for peeing because
Right.
everybody around is going to be like, "Oh, great, a dog peed in the hallway." Everybody's here so snarky. I know I'm going to hear about it. So I just try and be discreet and not say anything. But then in his mind, he's like, "Oh, this is okay."
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do about this. So as it stands right now, when I take him out, if he pees, I'm quiet about it. I pretend nothing happened. I continue to take him out for the rest of his business, and then I come back and clean it up, and
Now,
hopefully
when
nobody
you're
sees.
carrying him, he's fine.
When I carry him, he doesn't pee, so
He won't. He won't.
he won't go.
He doesn't treat your arms like
No,
a
no, no. So
washroom, just the
that's why
hallway.
usually I
Perfect.
carry him. I know one time I made the mistake of trying to pick him up once I realized he was, going for a pee, and that was the
And
worst.
now you're just
That
holding a sprinkler.
that was
Yeah.
all over my arms, all over the walls, everything. So yeah. Anyways, dog ownership.
All right. Now that we've established that your dog uses your hallway as a washroom.
Yes. Good morning, Blue Jays fans.
Yes, good morning, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to the walk-off. I'm Scott Belford, joined with my good buddy and co-host Adam Mack. And the Jays in the midst of a three-game losing streak, so we will deep dive into that. We'll talk about where we're at for injuries, who's coming back when, and then we'll also get into Trevor Bauer as he is, well, technically, he's kind of being targeted by the MLB right now for the sticky substance rules. His balls are the only one being tested,
Yep.
and it's coincidence, is what they say.
Actually, just before we hopped on live here, I was watching a YouTube video from Trevor Bauer's channel, 24 minutes long, from March 25th. It's entitled "MLB's Sticky Situation." I'll drop that in the Discord for anybody that's watching. But
Yeah,
he
perfect.
basically, I mean, I only got 6 minutes into it, but basically continues to critique this whole BS rule and how
Yeah.
he says it won't change anything. And
It won't change anything, and we've discussed this before. We will get into that a little later on
yeah,
here.
sorry.
I was more just teasing,
You're
but
right. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
absolutely. No, don't be sorry. We'll get right
All right.
into it. Before we do that, too, we had the lovely chance to sit down and chat with Tim Meza, left-handed
Yes.
pitcher out of the Blue Jays bullpen. So that's our guest today on the podcast. We'll air the whole interview in about 30 to 40 minutes is my guess.
Yeah.
You can also check that out on our YouTube channel, The Walk Off Podcast. Subscribe if you don't want to miss any of these interviews. Hopefully, Tim opens up the door to more Blue Jays interviews. That's the dream here.
That would be nice.
We also chatted with Chavez Young yesterday. He is a Blue Jays prospect out of the Bahamas, and
Very
his
cool.
perspective was very interesting. Now, unfortunately, his internet was garbage, so he cut out a bunch, but I think we can piece together some clips there and get those up. So, again,
Yeah.
that'll be on our YouTube channel. And, of course, Josh Palacio, we talked to last week, Ali Schroeder. She is with the Canadian National Women's Baseball Team. That interview is in the can. All of these are interviews you can expect in the next week or so. Keep an eye out for those. All right. Oh, yeah. And before we get right into the Blue Jays stuff, we had our first radio show on Tuesday,
Yes, very exciting.
365 Sportscast. We do that every single Tuesday live at 6 Eastern time, and you can tune in either on the app or just go online and check that out. We recently were picked up by 365 Sportscast, the sports network, radio network,
Very cool.
which was very exciting, our inaugural show, and it went pretty well. That is actually up. We're posting those on along with our podcast.
Yeah.
So you can get that wherever you get
So
your
if you're downloading
podcasts.
podcasts and you're like, why is there an extra episode on Wednesday morning? That's why.
That's why we're doubling our content
There you
for
go.
the content gods.
Lucky you.
Okay, let's get into it. It's been a rough 3 days for
Yes, sir.
Jays fans and for Blue Jays players in general, I would say.
Yeah.
We are in the midst of a 3-game losing streak. The last 2 games have been rough to take. And in all honesty, all 3 of them were pretty rough. They were all winnable games.
Absolutely.
155 games left in the season, and by no means should we be sounding the panic bells or anything like that. However, there were definitely some takeaways that need to improve if this team is going to be a playoff contender. A few things about yesterday's game. So the Blue Jays lost in the 11th inning. They are really struggling cashing in runs when runners are in scoring position. And this is something that they need to do a much better job of. Yesterday was pretty frustrating. They should have won that game in the 10th inning. They probably should have even won that in the 9th.
Yeah.
Jonathan Davis. Now, before we really get into what happened, I do wish to address one of the bigger problems, in my opinion, that's going on. Okay. And that is that our bench is a very short bench because they're going with a 9-man bullpen. So Jonathan Davis, Joe Panic, Alondro Kirk. That is the bench players available to Charlie Montoya. I also haven't liked the way Charlie Montoya has managed that bench. I mean, it was really weird yesterday to watch him, it was the last game against the Rangers where he used the entire bench in one move pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, like he pulled Jansen, put Davis on first for Panic to pinch run.
No.
And then he puts in Rowdy at the plate, and then he has to replace Jansen with Kirk, and there you go. There's your bench. Your whole bench is used in one move, and I couldn't really wrap my head around that. Why wouldn't you just hit Kirk in that scenario, especially with Rowdy being so
ice cold,
and Kirk being a good hitter from both pitchers, both left and right-handed pitchers. He has good splits, right? So I understand Montoya is thinking of putting in Rowdy there to bat against the righty, but you're just burning bench pieces. I really couldn't understand that move. Very similar thing happened yesterday where he switches out Kirk, puts Kirk in instead of Jansen. Davis is running. Again, the bench is just burned. You've got nobody on the bench. I don't know, man. They need the 9-man bullpen because starting pitching has proven to be a bit of a question mark still.
Right.
And I don't know how you're feeling about that. That loss yesterday, man, in extra innings, that was a tough one to lose.
It was tough. The thing that was tough, I think, what really felt like a gut punch too was watching Davis come into pinch run and then getting picked off on the first pickoff attempt. Mm-hmm. Like I can't wrap my mind around that. I can't. That is so unacceptable. I'm at a loss for words. Like it wasn't it'd be one thing if it was a stolen base and it was a failed steal attempt, because what are you gonna do, right? Like you get your best jump, the pitcher made a good pitch, the catcher made a good throw, the good tag, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But just a pickoff
to get picked off
on the first pickoff attempt, like especially for Davis, like I know he's not going to get sent down for this, but that can't happen again.
I don't wish to be Mr. Negativity here, but maybe this is why Jonathan Davis is 30 years old and this is the first sniff of the big leagues he's had. That was an unacceptable move, especially, and it's funny because when he first got picked off, because of the way the rules work now with the runner starting on second, right, and it's the last out that goes to second, I thought Davis would be starting at second base, which wouldn't have been near as bad. And they probably would have scored in the 10th. Kirk had a passed ball that went all the way to third base, pretty much.
Yeah,
the catcher chasing it down all the way to the dirt, and he didn't move up to third.
Vladdy would have.
Vladdy even would have.
Vladdy
would have been rounding third. Yeah. I mean, we would have been mad at Vladdy for a different reason, but
yeah, no, that was tough.
It's just really frustrating to watch the fastest guy on your team on first base get picked off and then needing to start with literally the slowest base runner you have at second base.
Right, and the reason that was although Davis was the last out, he was then pulled from the game and replaced by Kirk. Right, yeah. So he was in at the quote-unquote number 9 spot for, was it for Danny Jansen?
Yes.
Right, so, of course, next time defensively, he gets pulled out for Kirk to go in to play catcher. So, that's what happened there. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, I don't know. If as bad as we feel about that loss, Davis has to feel 10 times worse because he literally had one job.
100%. I don't doubt.
Wasn't out there even for a single pitch. One pickoff attempt, and he came back.
Like, I don't doubt the heart of this team. You know, like, I don't doubt that they're down on themselves and upset. And I really think that there's been a little bit of a mental breakdown within this core. And I think the youth is showing a little bit here. One of the big things that came to my mind is that George Springer was looking so good on Wednesday. It was expected that he'd be starting with the Blue Jays on Thursday at their pseudo home opener in Dunedin. And then he had some quad tightness in his right quad.
So that's not why he was out in the first place. It was oblique.
So it's not why he was out. He was out because of his oblique. So this is a separate injury. But also, he's had quad problems in the past. So this is not a good thing. And the Jays are not going to rush him now. And it looks like he probably won't be in again until, it might be May. We don't know. However, I think that this deflated the team quite a bit, which is frustrating to see because they have played decent without Springer. I think that a few things kind of piled on here. Number one, they really blew a great opportunity against the Texas Rangers to take 2 of 3. They should have probably won all 3 games. Let's take the Tanner Roark loss and put that aside, though, and say that that was just a loss. Okay? The 2-1 loss with Hyun-Jin Ryu pitching a gem in the getaway game, that was hard, man. That was tough to swallow. And again, there were just some managerial moves that I couldn't understand. There were a few mistakes on the field that were frustrating. They had runners in scoring position in several occasions where they couldn't cash them in. You lose 2-1 with this offensive lineup, and that's one that's going to come back and bite you, right? Like, against the Texas Rangers, who are going to be a bottom-feeding team throughout this season. That's tough, man.
That is tough. It is.
Have your ace on the field, and I think that kind of took the wind out of their sails there. They really went into this home opener with that on their mind, and then the George Springer being deflated by that. And I just think, honestly, these 23-year-old, 24-year-old kids, let it get to them.
Well, I mean, let's put this in perspective. You wake up Tuesday morning, you got Tanner Roark on the mound. He's pitching 3-0 counts to 27 straight batters, okay?
Oh, my goodness.
So you're already kind of deflated, but you're telling yourself, you know what? Light at the end of the tunnel. We got Ryu pitching tomorrow. It'll be fine. Tomorrow comes, you lose, and you're telling yourself, you know what? It's okay. We got George Springer coming back tomorrow.
Our $150 million man
It'll be
coming.
Fine.
Yeah.
Tomorrow comes, Springer's not there. You're going, where is the light at the end of this tunnel? And they have to find it from within, so.
They do, and this team can win without Springer.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't really have a lot more to say about this other than I really think that these losses were a combination of mental screw-ups, the inability to cash in runs when they needed to with ducks on the pond.
Yeah.
And some weird moves by Charlie Montoya and some weird mistakes by guys that shouldn't be making those mistakes. You know, like Jonathan Davis is on this team for his speed and his base running acumen. And for him to get picked off there is really difficult. And that's not That's not where they lost it, man. The truth is that Danny Jansen being in that 9 hole and coming up to the plate with a runner on second and nobody out and not being able to lay down a bunt. Like, that was the thing, is he came up and not only could he not lay down a bunt, I was yelling at the TV, Charlie, you better not ask Danny, I can't lay down a bunt, to lay down a bunt. And he didn't. But then he couldn't even move the runner from second to third. He hit the ball in the only place that would stop Panic from moving to third, which is right to the shortstop.
Well, and if I'm not wrong, I think Simeon was up next, and
top of the order.
Put one to the warning track out in center field that Mike Trout settled under. But I mean,
that would have been,
if you got it Panic on third, he comes home easily on that deep fly.
Easily.
That's the whole point of a sacrifice bunt, is to get a guy in scoring position so that a deep fly ball can cash him in, and that would have been the game.
And listen, Ross Stripling pitched fine. He kept them in the game the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, when he left, the Jays were up 5-4. Now, do you want your starting pitcher giving up 4 runs and 5 innings pitched? No, probably not. That said, he was pulled from the game with the lead.
Yeah.
The bullpen didn't look near as sharp yesterday as they have. That said, they got it done.
Yeah.
Right? Julian Merriweather came in and pitched the 9th and the 10th inning. No runs scored. He didn't have his command. You know, like if you looked at his first 2 innings against the Yankees and against the Rangers in that first game, he was lights out. Okay, but he still came in and pitched 2 innings and didn't allow a run. Jordan Romano allowed a run, but again, he just didn't have his stuff either. Mm-hmm. I'm not upset if the bullpen pitches 4 innings a game and allows 1 run.
Yeah.
The offense just didn't get it done when they had the opportunity to do it, and that's kind of how this breaks down. They had chances to do it, and they had chances that were blocked by mistakes, and that's just so much more difficult to deal with. So they need to have a little bit of a group meeting and just refocus, I think, is a big thing here, is that they just had some brain farts. Yeah. You know, they lacked focus in the last few games, and it showed. And it's frustrating as a fan to watch when you're like, okay, how are these guys not able to move someone from second to third with nobody out? Like, how is that possible? Especially on stuff like passed balls. And you're like with that passed ball with Kirk, and you know, we both are big Captain Kirk fans. Yeah. But anyone else on that team would advance to third. Anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing to note with Kirk and Jansen, I guess, defensively, is we can't throw anybody out.
Yeah.
Collectively, we are, I think, over 8 now.
Yeah, they're running on the Jays all the time.
And the more that happens, the more people are going to start to see the film on it and realize that this is an easy base sitting there, and it's only going to get worse. So
this is where you might actually see Juan Gratterall come in, because at least he can throw a base runner out. Of course, he is the catcher in AAA that they picked up from the Dodgers last week. This is another stat that's kind of disheartening, is Blue Jays batters set a franchise record for the most strikeouts through the first 7 games of the season with 72 strikeouts. They are striking out a lot. And they're striking out even more than normal when there's runners in scoring positions, which is even more infuriating.
What do you like?
Okay.
What do you like about this? Can we get to what you like?
No,
about
I
this?
love that you just said that. I was just going to be like, let's switch this up and talk about some positives, because there are some positives.
Lots, yeah.
Okay, Grishik is having a heck of a start to this season, both defensively and offensively. Okay, he's putting the bat on the ball. He's hitting it deep. Even yesterday, where he went 0 for 4, I think, he had 2 that, you know, could have been a hit in any other scenario, right? Like, he had a great exit velo, took it to the warning track, hard hit balls just at guys, right?
Yeah.
He pretty much saved the game in the top of the 9th there when he made that diving catch
What a catch that was, too. I was thinking, reminiscent of the Kevin Pillar days.
Yeah, that was incredible. It was incredible and ballsy because had that ball gotten behind him, that's 2 runs and the game's pretty much over. But he also saved the run and the game would have been over anyways. So smart move on his part. I did want to talk about Vladdy too. He has been incredibly hot at the plate. He looks really good at first base right now. Like that stabbing play he made to get Ohtani out when that ball was just I don't even know what the exit velo was on that ball he caught, but it was probably over 100. That line drive that he just jumped and it was incredible. Yeah. And it was cool because I was reading on Twitter today that after he got off after that catch, he went up to Luis Rivera and he said, "I'm feeling it. Nice. I'm a good first baseman, and I think I'm only going to get better." So like his confidence is building. His footwork has improved. He looks like a different guy at first base in comparison to last year. Completely different
I think
guy.
we're both super high on Vladdy. I think maybe it's finally kind of just clicked in his head. Like last year, it felt like him playing first base in his mind was a demotion. It was embarrassing. It was, the prestige of being a third base MLB player. It felt like something a lot more real and legitimate. Like I'm saying in his mind than playing first. First base felt like one step above DH. Which,
Agreed.
Kind of it is.
It kind of is, but also I think that it was the way in which they gave him first base because it was almost sort of a punishment for how the shape he showed up in that second time around, right? Like he showed up so out of shape.
Yes, but the people have also been, and there's no way he hasn't heard this. As much as he's had a white hot fire bat for the last 22 years of his life, people have been saying as long as he's been a prospect, is he actually a third baseman? When will they move him to first? All this stuff, right? So I just think also like part of it last year was him being like, man, I wanted to prove my critics wrong. I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Blah, blah, blah. And now I think he's starting to realize that like, first base is actually pretty freaking important. Like I can actually still be a freaking game changer over here.
Absolutely.
And he is doing it. So
he is.
Here's my question for you. Would you rather see the start that Vladdy has, and long season, but great spring training. He's continued it into the regular season. He's hitting .348 with 2 homers. Mm-hmm. Would you rather the team be 3-4 with Vladdy hitting and playing first the way that he is, or would you rather the team be 7-0 and have Vladdy hitting .200?
Well, I'd rather be 7-0, but it's a team game. I don't get me wrong. I think it's fantastic that Vladdy is showing flashes of what we all expected him to be, and I think he is going to have a very big year. But it's a team game.
Here's why I will say the opposite. I'm happy with where we're at. I would way prefer this over us being 7-0 because I think the team figures it out. I think it's a long season, like you said, 152 games left. The team will figure it out. I have so much confidence in everybody else to get their stuff together. We got guys coming back from injury. That will solve itself. If Vladdy was continuing to struggle, I'd be really worried.
Well, and that's an interesting point. I know that this season did mean a lot to Vladdy for just the way the MLB viewed him and the way the fans continued to view him and even the way the front office continued to view him, because if he did continue to struggle, and when I say struggle, if you look at Vladdy's numbers last year, he was still an above average hitter, right? Like, I just mean not live up to the potential that everyone kind of thought he would be at. Exactly. So, no, I do think that this start is super important. And I do think the team is going to find it. Some things to consider, too, that we didn't bring up. The displacement of this team is something to not be ignored. Okay, so they had their home opener yesterday. And there's some cool things about their home opener in Dunedin, too. Dunedin is 29,000 people. It's just a little town.
Right.
And I can't even imagine being an 8-year-old boy, a ball fan, and getting to see Mike Trout and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. play a regular season game
Right.
in my town. In 20 years, that kid is going to be telling his kids about what a crazy experience it was to watch these all-stars
Hall of Famers
play in this little town. Very, very cool.
Yeah, you're right.
Now, that said, there's no way this isn't wearing a little bit on the Jays. Okay. So the big league team, the Jays are in Dunedin, but that's not it, man. Right? Like that's where the low A team would normally play. So the Dunedin Blue Jays have been displaced. The Blue Jays are bound for Buffalo eventually here. So the AAA team, the Buffalo Bisons, are playing in Trenton, New York.
Yeah.
Or New Jersey, I should say. Trenton, New Jersey. The single A team, the Vancouver Canadians, are in Hillsboro, Oregon, because the border problem.
Right.
And the organization is being split between Florida and Buffalo. Like, man, every minor leaguers and the major leaguers of this organization, this is literally a nightmare scenario.
Absolutely.
There's no routine. There's no sense of home. It's got to wear on them. And they're saying all the right things. The lip service is there, but how can it not wear on a guy?
Well, and especially just to be in an Airbnb or a hotel long term, like there's no real comfort there. I mean, we've interviewed enough guys in the last 2 months, whether they're a prospect or Timothy Meza on the big club. I mean, these guys say, "Oh, it doesn't matter," and anything like that, but it's not the same.
It matters. It matters, and it's a pain in the butt. These guys all have girlfriends. These guys all have wives. Some of them have kids. They wish their families there, and it's very difficult to do in the situation that they're in. So, I mean, I'm not making excuses for this team because they need to be a lot better, and some of these mental breakdowns, they need to stop.
Yep.
But let's not forget, too, that they are human, and this has been a bit of a pile-on the last week. So I think once they kind of compartmentalize the Springer thing and put that aside and get over the fact that they blew that game with Ryu and that they're on a 3-game losing streak, I think this team is going to be fine, and we both mentioned that. Another thing that I am ready for right now that I don't know why Montoya hasn't done yet is this batting order has to change. I don't understand why he's still running Biggio and Bichette out there at the top of the order when they're cold as heck. And I love both of those guys, and those guys are going to carry this team at times when others aren't. Okay? And we talked about this before the season even started, that this batting order is going to be a shifting animal throughout the whole year, and it hasn't been. I've been shocked at how regimented Montoya has been with this batting order. When Vladdy is so hot, I don't understand why he's not hitting in that 2-hole. Why is he still hitting 5th? I don't understand. Randall Grichuk is lighting the league on fire. Listen, nobody is more streaky than Randall Grichuk. Why not ride him when he's hot? Why is he not hitting 3rd? Take a little bit of pressure off Biggio and Bichette. Move them down in the order. Gurriel's starting to hit. Move him up to the 5-hole.
Here, let me...
I get frustrated. Go ahead.
It's okay. You're just spiraling, man. I feel bad for you. You're just so worked up. It's great. My one wonder about, not moving Vladdy up in the batting order is if this is a little bit of a, let's protect him. Let's protect his confidence. He's hitting great down there, but if we move him up, is that gonna...
Don't fix what's not broken.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's hitting 348.
Yeah.
If we move him up and all of a sudden he cools off a little bit, right? Got a long season ahead. Let's just continue to build this confidence. The guys that are at the top and are struggling, I mean, Simeon as well, Bichette. These guys are all hitting 200, right? Maybe it's just, I don't know. It's frustrating.
Who's the best hitter on the team right now?
Vladdy.
So why do we not want him to have more at bats while he's hot?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
I'm with you, man. I get where Montoya is coming from. He wants to show a little bit of loyalty to the guys that he knows has been there all along. I get. And listen, Biggio's gone deep a couple times. Biggio is starting to get his walks. Biggio is pulling out of it. I still don't think he's a 2-hole hitter.
no.
Like, I want the guys in that 1 and 2 hole to be guys that are hot because they're the ones that are getting the most at bats.
You're right. So, I mean, the difference between hitting number 5 and hitting number 1 is only going to be, worst case scenario, 1 extra at bat a game. Right? If it goes through the order 4.5 times. But, like you said, if I'm on the Blue Jays stats right here, Marcus Semien, our leadoff hitter, through 7 games, has 30 at bats. Vladimir Guerrero, through 7 games, has 23 at bats. So it literally
makes
every single
difference.
game, he's getting 1 less at bat.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just think it's time to put him in the 2-hole personally. But I've been saying this for about a week now. I've been saying this to you, that I want Vladdy in the 2-hole.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. One more thing I want to touch on here is I did want to touch on Raphael Delis because he really got shit on yesterday, and I truly don't believe that he deserved it. Now, if you wish to question Montoya for bringing him in at that point, I understand that. They needed a strikeout or a pop-up. That's what they needed in that situation, right? Runners on second and third, 2 outs.
Yeah.
They did not wish. Now, Ryan Borucki was dealing. Ryan Borucki looked good. Ryan Borucki is a guy who pitches to contact. You did not wish them to put the bat on the ball on the ground in this scenario. Delis came in, first pitch, okay, cut fastball on the inside corner. The guy got under it right away. And yes, a little blooper blooped in between second base and center field. Delis literally did what they needed him to do.
Cut the pop fly.
It just kind of sucked that it
was a blooper.
Fletcher got lucky. Yeah. It just dropped in.
Mm-hmm.
So to get all upset at Delis over this, I feel that's so silly. Like, I don't know.
You're right.
And who do you bring in instead of him? I didn't want to see Merriweather back out there. He didn't have his best stuff. It was great that he went 2 innings, but you're really playing with fire bringing him out again. And then who do you go with? Chatwood? Maybe.
He's not really a high leverage guy, though.
But he's not really a high leverage guy. He hasn't gotten Montoya's confidence yet. And this is another thing to remember is that Delis, yes, he's a human rain delay. He's incredibly frustrating to watch pitch because he takes forever.
Yeah.
But once he's warmed up, like, if you remember last year, it took him about 10 games to kind of get to the point where he had his control and putting his pitches where he wanted to put them.
Yeah.
We need Raphael Delis at the back end of this pen.
We do.
Like, last year, he was closing games for us when guys were injured. He was the man.
Yeah,
and he's one of the reasons the Jays made the playoffs last year. So let's not turn on Raphael Delis because he's had a couple of... He didn't even lose those games for us. Yeah. He just made us very nervous. I don't know.
I'm a Delis
believer. There was a lot...
I'm still long on Delis, so...
Yeah. Do we want to talk Roark?
No.
Not really. Yeah,
What's there to say? What do you want to say?
Do you think he'll make another start?
Do I think he'll make another start? Yes.
Yeah? He'll have one more chance, eh?
I think he'll have one more chance. And here's one thing, I mean, a lot of people have been saying, like, oh, it's one game, you can't jump on Tanner Roark. Obviously, Tanner Roark had the terrible game 2 against the Rangers. Was it 5 earned runs in 3 innings? Not literally, but almost literally every batter he faced, he went 3-0 against. He didn't walk anybody, but he fell behind on everyone.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people come into his defense saying, "Wow, it's just one game, small sample size," but it's not.
No, it's not.
He was bad in spring training. Spring training doesn't mean anything, Adam. I got it.
Yeah.
He was bad all year last year.
Yep. His velocity's been down. His control is garbage. And this is one thing that you and I were talking about a lot in that second game against the Rangers, where he made his first start of the year, was the 3-0 counts were ridiculous. You can't pitch 4 innings and give 6 guys a 3-0 count.
Yeah.
It's insane, especially considering guys are swinging 3-0. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to sneak one pass for a strike in 2021, guys are sitting on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Roark will make one more start.
I mean, the one thing that can be said about what Tanner Roark brings to this team is that he eats innings, and sometimes you just need a guy that like isn't the best but has the stretched out arm and can go 6-7 innings. It's going to be ugly. He's going to give up some runs, but he can give your bullpen the night off.
Yeah.
Didn't do that, this week.
No, he didn't. And that's the thing. So I think they'll give him one more chance. Everyone's saying and screaming, DFA him. That's not going to happen. I think if he fails to do what he should do again, he will wind up in the bullpen. I think that he'll be the long man in the mop-up role, kind of the Shun Yamaguchi role from last year, right?
This game's a write-off.
This game's a write-off. We need somebody to come in and pitch, and we don't wish to burn the bullpen. I think that will be Tanner Roark's role going forward.
That's a great point.
And this transitions well into where we are for injuries. So Nate Pearson is getting very, very close to returning. He is pitching off a mound. He's at the alternate site right now, and he's getting very close. Robbie Ray is probably back on this team come Monday. Thomas Hatch is also pitching off a mound. He's also at the alternate site. He's not quite as advanced as Ray and Pearson is, but he's probably a couple weeks away as well. When these 3 guys come back, Roark is done, in my opinion. Yep. I mean, unless he goes in and pitches 7 innings and just blows us all away next start, which I'm all for. Do it, Tanner.
Yeah.
And then the last injury is George Springer. Of course, we all know about his oblique problem and why he was not able to start the season with the Jays. He did have, like we mentioned earlier in the show, right quad tightness while he was running the bases on Wednesday night. And they held him out of the lineup for Thursday. We've already all gone over this. There's no word on when Springer will be back, but I would not expect to see him in April.
Really?
In all honesty, man, the fact that he had quad issues last year and it was such a big deal and that he missed like 6 weeks, I think the Jays are just going to, until he is completely pain-free.
Yeah.
Like, George Springer is so much more important to this team in September than he is in April.
No, you're right. It's a free trade deadline acquisition, right? You just hope the team is contending, and then we get him back healthy and good, and he makes the team that much better.
Exactly. Exactly. And when it comes to pitching too, it'll be nice to see Robbie Ray come back. He had a really nice little spring for us. The spring training stuff doesn't really count, and he may need a start or two to kind of get back to where he was. But solid lefty to enter this lineup, and it definitely is something that is going to help this team, I think.
Yep.
Same with Thomas Hatch. I look forward to Hatch coming back. And, of course, Nate Pearson. The dream is Nate comes back. He's feeling strong. He's feeling healthy. He's throwing 100 miles an hour again, and he can step in and pitch 5 innings. That's the hope. All right, before we throw to Timothy Meza, who was just an awesome dude to talk to. He really deep dives into his Tommy John surgery, which was very interesting. So if you don't know a lot about Tommy John and you hear about it all the time, he literally goes through everything from what he felt from the moment he made that pitch to Didi Gregorius, where he stepped off the mound in pain, to how long it took between the time that, he was found out he had Tommy John to the point he was under the knife, to the point where he could start throwing again, when he could start working out. It was very, very informative. He talks about making the bullpen again this year, the difference between the team from 2019 to now, because some of you forget that Meza was on this team in 2019, and it was pretty much a completely different team. Yeah. So that was really a great interview. That we'll get to that in 2-3 minutes here. I did wish to talk Trevor Bauer. So the MLB implemented these new rules when it comes to the sticky substance stuff, where pine tar and that sort of thing isn't supposed to be on the balls because it's a way to increase your spin rate as a pitcher artificially. We've talked to enough ball players over the last 6 months that I truly do believe we have a little bit better understanding than this than maybe the casual fan. We've heard from pitchers, we've heard from hitters, and for the most part, ball players feel like it's not that big of a deal. Everybody's doing it. We've even heard from hitters who have said stuff like, listen, I would like the pitcher using pine tar, especially when it's cold, because they lose control of the ball sometimes, and the last thing I'd like is to get hit by a 95-mile-an-hour fastball because the guy loses his grip. However, the artificial increase of spin rate does really help the pitchers, and this is why the MLB is decided to crack down, or at least that's the lip service they're saying. Personally, I think this is literally an attack on Trevor Bauer, which Trevor Bauer's been screaming from the rooftop since 2015 that everyone's cheating. It's BS. Garrett Cole's making a ton of money because of it. Like, he just spouted off, and he has not been shy about it. And he points the finger at MLB, and he gets in their face, and they don't like that. So the new rules, what they've decided to do is that they're going to randomly test balls and see if there's pine tar on them or some sort of sticky substance. If they find a substance, then they're going to go into the past of the pitcher, figure out his spin rate there, and if there's a huge increase, then there's some sort of fine and suspension, right. And who knows. So right now, they are randomly checking Trevor Bauer's balls. He's the only pitcher that they have randomly chosen. I know there's a lot of Trevor Bauer haters out there who are fine with this targeted attack. Mm-hmm. I'm not a hater by any means. Does Trevor Bauer annoy me sometimes? How can he not? But I do get a kick out of him. And I think that it is kind of BS that this is the way MLB is going about it, because this isn't about spin rate. This isn't about sticky substances. This is about making Trevor Bauer shut the hell up.
Yep.
This is the Trevor Bauer rule. This rule is in place to be like, stop pointing out that we were using sticky substances. Stop making a big deal that now you're hiring scientists to make your own. Stop all of this, right? Yeah. So I don't know how you feel about it. I know you just brought up that that vlog Bauer put out recently.
Yeah, I mean, I only got a few minutes into it before we went live here today. But as of 2 weeks ago, Trevor Bauer on his own YouTube page continues to taunt the MLB and says, look, even these new rule changes, they won't change anything. They don't mean anything. It's all bogus, basically. I mean, in his words, he says, his understandings of the rules are that pitchers are the only ones that are not allowed to have a sticky substance on their person, right? So if a catcher has sticky substance on his gear, on his glove, if a third baseman, if a center fielder has a sticky substance, that's legal in the MLB. You can't go out and say, hey, the left fielder has pine tar on his wrist. Let's toss him from the game. That's never been a rule. It's not a rule now. So I guess that's what the defense we're going to see when a sticky substance comes back on one of Trevor Bauer's balls is prove that it came from me.
It's pretty common knowledge that Yadi Molina, he loads the ball up for his pitcher.
Yeah. So
like you look at Yadi, he's got all this pine tar on his wrist, right? Yeah. His pitchers don't even need to load the ball up.
He's loading it up and throwing it back.
He's loading it up and throwing it back. You know, like it's such a silly rule.
Yeah.
They're going to find ways to circumvent it, and they're going to also find ways to punish Trevor Bauer for constantly bringing up how stupid these rules are. And that's what's going on, I think.
Absolutely.
So we'll see what the tests come back on these Bauer balls that they have sent to the lab. Personally, I think it would be hilarious if they managed to suspend Trevor Bauer over this. Like, Bauer would lose his mind. I almost want to see it happen just for the fallout.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
All right, everybody. I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much for listening. Again, you can follow us on Twitter, at Walk Off Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe and follow us on YouTube, the Walk Off Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy Tim Meza.
Okay.